You know that old saying, the best things in life are free? Think about a walk in a public park, or clean air, or even just the feeling of safety you get from national defense. Well, it turns out that for economists, those free things are a huge puzzle. When there's no price tag attached to something, the normal rules of the market just break. So how do we analyze these goods? And how do we make sure we're getting the right amount of them? Let's dive in.
And this lyric really hits the nail on the head. We're talking about things that nature gives us, like rivers and oceans, or things the government provides, like parades or streetlights. You don't get a bill every time you enjoy them.
Okay, so this is the absolute core of the issue. Usually, prices are like traffic signals for the economy. They tell producers what to make and consumers what to buy, guiding everything to a pretty efficient outcome. But when a good is free, those signals are gone. It's like the traffic lights are all out. Economists call this a market failure, and it's a huge reason why governments sometimes step in. This is our starting point.
So here's our game plan for today. First up, we're going to lay the groundwork and classify every good into one of four types. Then we'll dive into the famous free rider problem that plagues public goods. We'll look at how governments try to solve it using something called cost-benefit analysis. After that, we'll tackle another classic problem, the tragedy of the commons. And we'll wrap it all up by showing how the idea of property rights is the key to solving a lot of these messes.
All right, to really get why the market is great at giving us things like pizza, but terrible at providing things like clean air, we need a way to sort goods. Economists do this using two key characteristics. And trust me, once you get this framework, everything else we talk about will click into place. The first characteristic is called excludability. It's a really simple question. Can you stop someone from using the good if they don't pay for it? Think about an ice cream cone. If you don't pay, the shopkeeper simply won't give it to you. That's excludable. But what about a city's tornado siren? Once that thing goes off, you can't exactly make only the paying customers hear it. That's non-excludable. The second characteristic is rivalry in consumption. The question here is, does one person's use of a good prevent another person from using that same good? So let's go back to our ice cream cone. If I eat that cone, you can't eat the exact same cone. It's gone. That's rival in consumption. But with a tornado siren, me hearing it doesn't diminish your ability to hear it one bit. It's non-rival.
And this table is where it all comes together. This is the whole framework. By asking our two questions, is it excludable? Is it rival? We can categorize pretty much everything. Let's walk through it. In the top left, we have goods that are both excludable and rival. These are private goods, like that ice cream. Markets are fantastic at handling these. In the top right, we have goods that are excludable but not rival. We call these club goods. Think cable TV. You have to pay for it, but you and your neighbor watching the same channel doesn't diminish anything. Now let's look at the bottom row. This is where things get tricky. In the bottom left, goods are rival but not excludable. These are common resources. Fish in the ocean are the classic example. If I catch a fish, you can't, but you can't really stop me from going out to fish. Finally, in the bottom right, we have goods that are neither excludable nor rival. These are public goods, like national defense. Our focus today is on these two bottom categories, public goods and common resources, because that's where markets fail.
So let's start with public goods. The fact that they're non-excludable creates a very specific issue that just stops private markets cold. It's called the free rider problem.
A free rider is exactly what it sounds like. It's somebody who enjoys the benefits of something without chipping in for the cost. I mean, think about it. If you can watch a town's big fireworks show from your backyard for free, why would you buy a ticket? The incentive is to just not pay. And if everyone thinks that way, well, nobody buys a ticket and the fireworks show never gets funded. Okay, let's put some real numbers to this to make it crystal clear. Imagine a small town with 500 people. We'll say that each and every resident gets about $10 of enjoyment or value from seeing a fireworks display. And the total cost to hire a company to put on the show is $1,000. So looking at these numbers, should the town do it?
Well, to answer that, the first thing we have to do is calculate the total benefit to society, to the whole town. This is pretty straightforward. We just take the number of residents, which is 500, and we multiply it by the value each one gets, which is $10. So 500 times 10 gives us a total social benefit of $5,000.
Now, we compare the benefit to the cost. The benefit is a whopping $5,000, and the cost is only $1,000. I mean, from a social point of view, this is a total no-brainer. The benefits outweigh the costs 5 to 1. It is absolutely 100% efficient for this town to have a fireworks display. But here's the twist. Even though it's a fantastic idea for the town, no private business would ever do it. Why? Because of our old friend, the free rider problem. They can't force people to pay. But the government can. The local government can step in and say, okay, we're going to levy a tiny tax of just $2 on each of our 500 residents. That raises the exact $1,000 they need. And think about it. Every single resident pays $2, but gets a benefit they value at $10. They're all $8 better off. The government fixes the market failure, and everyone wins. Okay, so we've seen that the government can provide these public goods, but this opens up a whole new can of worms. How does the government decide which public goods to provide? Should they build a bridge or a new park? To make these choices, they rely on a tool called cost-benefit analysis. And as you're about to see, it's a really tough job.
Yeah, to really understand how hard this is, you have to grapple with this question. If the government wants to decide whether to, say, install a new traffic light, it has to weigh the cost of the light against the benefit. And a major benefit is a lower risk of someone dying in an accident. So to do the math, they have to put a dollar figure on saving a human life. Let's run through a hypothetical case. A town is considering spending $10,000 on a new traffic light. Studies show that this light would reduce the risk of a fatal accident at that intersection over its lifespan from 1.6% down to 1.1%. That's a risk reduction of 0.5 percentage point. Now for this last number. Economists have studied things like how much extra pay people demand for risky jobs to come up with something called the statistical value of a life. Now, this is really important. It's not saying any single person is worth $10 million. It's a measure of what people are willing to pay as a group for small reductions in risk. A common figure used in these studies is around $10 million. So let's use that.
Okay, so let's do the math just like a policy analyst would. First, we take that risk reduction, which was 0.5%. To use it in a formula, we have to convert that to a decimal, which is 0.005. Then, we multiply that risk reduction by the statistical value of a life, which we're saying is $10 million. So 0.005 times $10 million gives us a total monetary benefit of $50,000.
So what do we do with that number? We compare our calculated benefit, $50,000, to the actual cost of the traffic light, which is $10,000. The benefit is 5 times bigger than the cost, so the cost-benefit analysis gives a clear green light. The town should absolutely build it. Now, it's not a perfect science for sure, but it gives policymakers a logical way to approach these incredibly difficult decisions.
All right, let's switch gears and go back to our matrix. It's time to talk about that second problem category, common resources. Now remember, these are things that are rival. My use takes away from yours, but they're not excludable. You can't stop people from using them. And this combination leads to a classic economic problem known as the tragedy of the commons.
The story goes like this. Imagine a medieval town with a big shared pasture called the town common. Any family can let their sheep graze there for free. In the beginning, this works great. But then, each family, acting in their own best interest, thinks, hey, I can make more money if I add one more sheep to my flock. The problem is, every family thinks this way. Soon, the field is packed with sheep, the grass gets eaten down to the roots, the land becomes useless, and the whole town's sheep industry collapses. The tragedy is that each person, by making a rational choice for themselves, ignores the small negative costs they impose on everyone else, leading to a disaster for the entire group.
This leads us to the big takeaway, the fundamental solution that actually connects the problems of both public goods and common resources. At the root of both of these market failures is a lack of clear, well-defined property rights. Let's see how simply establishing who owns what can completely change the game.
Let me ask you a question. Think about cows and elephants. Both have huge commercial value, right? We get beef from cows, and unfortunately, poachers hunt elephants for their ivory tusks. So why is it that there are billions of cows thriving around the world while elephants are constantly threatened with extinction? What's the difference?
Well, the answer comes down to property rights. Wild elephants are a common resource. They roam across vast areas with no specific owner. This creates a terrible incentive for a poacher to kill one as fast as possible, because if they don't, someone else will. But cows are a private good. They are owned by ranchers. And a rancher has a powerful financial incentive to protect their herd, to make sure they're healthy, and to breed them to ensure a supply for the future. That single difference, legally enforced ownership, solves the tragedy.
And this brings us to our final big picture thought. The idea of property rights works great for things like cattle and land. But how do we apply this incredibly powerful concept to the huge common resources we all depend on today? Who owns the clean air? Who owns the oceans? Who owns a stable climate? Figuring out how to define and enforce ownership for these modern commons isn't just an academic puzzle. It's one of the biggest challenges our world is facing right now.